Good evening. This is Mohammed Paul from the Nushoor Media Team. If you could just tell us who you are, where do you live, and what are you studying?
Hi, everyone. My name is Malek Ibrahim. I am a research scientist for the Nushoor Institute, and I'm currently I've been working here for about a few months now, and originally I'm from Houston, Texas. But just to give a bit of background on myself, I did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering at UT Austin, and I did my master's in mechanical engineering at MIT. And I I love doing research, and I've been always trying to think about ways I can use my privilege and resources, use the knowledge that we have here and access to resources here to help those in need. And I've been very inspired by all the work that the Nushoor Institute has been doing in various areas, from water sovereignty to food sovereignty to energy, electricity, and power, as well as medicine, health, livelihood, and even shelter. So there's many different areas that Nushoor has been working in, and I've been trying to help out as much as I can, just to help those in need and to put my time where it's best, where it can be best used. So.
Man, these are all very amazing things I'm hearing. So if you could just tell us, how did you initially hear about Nushoor?
Yeah, so I actually heard about Nushoor first through um, uh, a mutual connection at MIT. They reached out to me, and this person knew or was in contact with Dr. Saqib Ahmed, as well as Dr. Tariq. And they were telling me a little bit about the work Nushoor was doing. And to be honest, like, I had been doing this kind of work before Nushoor had reached out to me. And once I saw that there was other people doing this, it was really inspiring to me, because I felt like everyone, um, everyone should be doing this work, especially us here in the developed world, because there's just so many people around the world that are struggling a lot and that need help. And I felt, you know, um, yeah, it was just like I felt like I was waiting for some to find some group that was doing this work. So it was really, you know, um, I was really heartwarmed when I saw that Nushoor was doing all this work, and that they, were able to get in touch in September last year. And since then, I've just been continuing to work with them on a pretty regular basis. So.
Which team are you part of, and what's your role?
Yeah, so my main project is in the area of energy. I'm currently working on a solar concentration device, um, that we intend to use for heating. So yeah, one of the big problems we have with some of the our contacts that we work with around the world is, of course, during the winter time they don't have centralized power plants that can provide heat during the winter. And so, we've been trying to work on ways to, to collect sunlight, basically, whenever the sun is out, in order to store it and then use it later. So we're currently investigating solar concentrators and sand batteries, and this is one of the main projects I'm working on. The other project I'm also working on at the moment is, in the area of more efficient, um, more efficient. Uh, we can take that out. Yeah.
Is there any other projects that you're working on?
Yeah. So we are doing some work as well in the area of, uh, making more efficient um, artificial intelligence systems, and we intend for these to be used, because obviously, as everyone knows, like, machine learning takes a lot of energy, and you know the AI systems that people are using all the time nowadays are very energy intensive and cause, projected to cause a lot of harm to the environment. And so one of the projects we're working on is trying to minimize energy consumption of AI systems and building more efficient, um, models, basically, and physical architectures. Um, and so I've been pretty heavily involved with this project, and part of the motivation there is that our brains, for example, are like incredible systems that can process sound, visual, information, speech, auditory information, and communicate in real time, and can process all these signals in real time. Yet the brain consumes very little power compared to like data centers, which are consuming thousands of watts, or ridiculous amounts of energy, um, on the order of gigawatts, whereas our brain only consumes like less than a light bulb. So this is one project we're working on and trying to make some make some progress and innovation. And so yeah.
For the solar concentrator project, and for the people who are going to be using it, deploying it, what makes that project impactful for them?
Yeah, so a lot of our contacts, of course, they have to find heating during the winter. So what do people typically do? What people typically will do is burn wood, or if a family is lucky enough, they might be able to have enough solar panels and a battery to be able to have some sort of electric heating system. But yeah, most people typically burn wood, and of course, wood is not a not a renewable resource, in the sense that if everyone is burning wood all the time, it will deplete. And then the other option, of course, is like fossil fuels. But in a lot of the areas we work in, the supply chains are not fully developed, and so they can't always get like certain areas especially can't always get access to fossil fuels. And so the solar concentrator idea is obviously fully renewable. It would use the energy of the sun, and you know be very easy to build, very based on very simple principles. And this, once you store the heat, it can be used for cooking. It could be used for heating during the winter. It could be used for heating at night. We've heard of many children, particularly in Gaza, who have died in the winter. This was more common last year, but we've seen many stories of babies and children dying at night due to frostbite, and just extremely cold conditions, and not having enough warmth or blankets. And so we've been really trying to push this forward, as one motivation, as a way to provide a renewable and cheap source of heating for families that are really in need. And yeah, of course, these systems could even be used for like developing microeconomies. What we've seen in some locations like Pakistan, and as well as Afghanistan, actually, that some entrepreneurs are designing and building solar concentrators from spare car parts, using like salvage steel, using mirrors they salvage from rubble, and they make these solar concentrators that can they sell on the side of the road, and they can be used to cook food and do all kinds of things. And people buy them. And so that's another idea, another kind of approach where we want to stimulate microeconomies, and help people like make a living for themselves. And in theory, the principles that we're using are very, like I said earlier, very simple and easy to replicate. And that's really like the main focus of all our work, is that they can be built with local materials, and that they're not too complicated. And we're currently in the we're still in like the testing phase right now, but we've seen some initial promising results. And yeah, it's just a matter of characterizing the system further and actually, you know, uh, experimenting with it on a daily basis to validate the results we've seen. But yeah.
During the time you spent designing and building your project, what's the most challenging problem you faced and overcame?
Yeah, I think it's honestly it's just the research process itself is probably the most challenging part. Like you have to this is just research. I mean, that's just the nature of how it works. Like you have to try an idea and you know, one always goes in with high hopes, but 9 times out of 10 it's going to fail. Um and you have to figure out why it failed, and then once you identify the source of error, then you have to come up with a solution, or you have to come up with an idea to address that error. And so, I've tried probably, I don't know, like a dozen different types of solar concentrators, different structural, uh, you know, different frames, different structural designs, different principles for solar concentration. We've tried using different materials. We've done a lot of testing, and you know, we've seen a lot of failure, obviously, but you can't have success without the failure, and every step along the way, you learn something new, and it's a way of being guided towards the optimal path. And so yeah, I would say that's probably the hardest part, and the way you overcome it is, I mean, sometimes you just have to be patient, and you know trust trust the process, so to speak, because the ideas are always going, like, you know the ideas will come, but sometimes one just has to put in the effort, put in the time, uh you know show some will, show some grit, and like just keep trying, even when sometimes when you feel like giving up. And then eventually you do find something that will work, and something that will addresses the problem. And like I said, now we're at a stage where I feel you know we just all we have to do really is characterize the solar concentration system, you know um, go out on some sunny days and get the system working and integrated with the sand batteries idea that we have. And um, yeah, I think from there we'll be able to confidently tell our partners in various parts of the world, how do you use these systems, how do you build them, what materials are needed, different variations depending on what materials are available to them, and what they can expect depending on the size, like what types of food they can cook, how fast or how long it takes, um, and all of that is probably future work and other more science that we're going to have to perform. But yeah, I would say that's probably the hardest part, is just you know basically failing, and then having to kind of get back up on your feet and try something else, and just keep pushing, and yeah, not giving up.
You mentioned a sand battery. If you could just explain what that is and how it works.
Yeah. So yeah, the sand battery. This is not like a new concept, but the basic idea is you know um, storing heat inside a thermal mass. Um, it's kind of like a battery. Electrical batteries store electrical energy, except in this case, we want to store heat because during the day, obviously everyone is warm, the sun is out, but then at night the temperatures drop, and then again, if you don't have a centralized power electrical system, or fossil fuels that they can burn, then it's going to get really cold, and it's going to be frankly, it'll be very you know um, uh, like challenging conditions to live in, and challenging circumstances. So if you could have a way to basically take the sunlight, or take the heat that you are concentrating during the day when the sun is out, into a device, or into basically just a bucket of sand, then that heat will get stored in the sand and then slowly dissipate to the surroundings. And the idea is that once you have all that heat stored in the sand, you could get like some tin cans and fill those with sand, or you could put the sand in a pillowcase, or put the sand inside a bag. That bag you could put in your bed, and it would slowly release the heat at night so that you stay warm. Um, and yeah, this is also future work. We're still characterizing the solar concentrator, but as we finish that task, then we're going to integrate and do further testing with the sand battery and verify that it works and that it's feasible and reliable. But yeah, that's the basic principle of how that works.
Have you learned anything from any other Nushoor researchers or engineers?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of people here who they have we all kind of we have the same motivation in terms of wanting to help those in need, and use our privileges, our resources, our skills, our time to serve the oppressed. But um, we all have a different way of doing that. And so one thing I've learned and kind of admired a lot from other Nushoor researchers is just their craftiness and ability to kind of to see value in things that other people would think have no value. So for example, we have one researcher who uh, basically built an egg hatchery from like an old cabinet that he found, like he picked up off the side of the road. um, and we helped, like we insulated it with like foam and cardboard, so like materials that again people would normally just throw away. We're finding dual uses for them, and for humanitarian applications, and in this case, this is the area of like food sovereignty and helping families hatch eggs so that they can grow, raise chickens more effectively, and have a sustainable food source. But yeah, there's other, I mean, I've been really inspired by other students too, and researchers here, like that, and their ability, like we're always trying to kind of figure out how to use, again, things that are seen as like having no value, but in turning them into something that has value. So for example, one researcher here had like a washing machine in his basement that like was broken, and no one hadn't been used in maybe, like, I don't know, a couple dozen years or something, and it was just collecting dust. But the owner said, you can take it. And so we took it to the lab, and we basically just took it apart, top down, every single component, took out the motor, took out the washing drum, took out the spiral, the central spiral, element that turns the clothes. Like all the bolts, we took them out. We were using various different tools, and it was really interesting just to see, like, you know how this process, and decomposing things, and then finding something that was like, oh, maybe we could use this for a different project, or you know or like you know these bearings could be used here, or this these gears could be used here, or this water pump could be used for this project. So it's always like something like an old broken washing machine, someone will just probably throw that on the side of the road. We're trying to find ways to you know decompose these systems and be able to extract value from them, and help areas where they have maybe like washing machines that are not in use, and then finding ways to be creative and resourceful. So yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest thing, just finding uses for materials that people would normally like throw away. We have one guy who makes, like, he has a farm where he's like using only like plastic bottles that he like cuts in half, and then sprouts sweet potato plants, tomato plants. So again, like another material that plastic bottles, how often do we just throw those away and see nothing, no use in them? And then here, where our researchers are finding uses for those things, and it gives me like inspiration, because now whenever I have a water bottle, I hold on to it, because I'm like, what, we can use it for this, or we can use it for drip irrigation, or we can use it for planting and making growing seeds or growing sweet potato plants. so yeah, there's always like use in the things that we throw away, and I think that's something that's inspired me a lot from other researchers here.
You mentioned you were studying mechanical engineering. Is that still the case, or were you trying to pivot to a different field of study?
Yeah, yeah. So my background is mechanical engineering. At this point, I did my bachelor's, I did my master's. Like, I've, I've worked in several different research labs, different types of projects, from like mechatronics and you know, like uh, microscopy applications to like machine learning, to underwater acoustics, to you know like more physical integrated systems. I've worked in like other labs doing like atomic force microscopy and nanotechnology, 3D printing, um, you know, and again, heavily like a lot of mechatronics work. And thank God I've been able to publish papers and you know um, get some good results in these different areas. But yeah, at this point, I think like I've seen a lot of things happening around the world, to be honest. And at this point, I am my main focus is like using what I've learned, using the skills I've gained, using the knowledge, the technical know-how, using like the mindset of like the research mindset that I've kind of like that I've kind of learned over the last several years, using all of that to help people and to teach people, here, to teach people, overseas, to teach people within our communities, and to create value in that way that spreads. Because I think a lot of times when we think about like giving to people in need, we always think about aid. We always think about like it's just sending money um, directly to people or to organizations that will deliver food or whatever. But we don't really ever think about like you know the aspect of like giving time, giving knowledge, and in a lot of I think almost all the time, like in all cases, giving knowledge actually is the best thing, because knowledge is like a tree or like a seed where you give it, and then the person, they can use it, they plant it, and then that seed grows, and then that that person can then transfer that knowledge to others. And in the same way, then you can have the knowledge just continually transferring and growing to entire communities. Whereas when you give just like simple aid, um, like from a money or a donation, like it might be able to help one or a few families, but once it's used, it's done, and it can't grow beyond that. And that person now just becomes dependent upon the aid. So yeah, I mean, I really believe in like the mission of the Nushoor Institute, and you know, um, to be honest, like I am a lifelong learner. I love all subjects, and learning about everything from like from science, math, literature, theology, to like yeah, it's really just everything. So I do I'll always be learning, but um, I think my main focus now is trying to use what I've learned and use like the skills I've gained to help people in need.
No, absolutely, and this just hit me. If you think about the, because really, hopefully, this is the old model of giving aid. It's actually very reliant upon finances, right? And there's the only participation is donating, right? But you think about what you spoke about, giving knowledge, that is something that more people can participate in, different areas, different expertise, and that actually benefits not just us, but of course the people overseas, just immensely, if not exponentially, right? So that's and I remember this is conversation you and I had, and you said you don't have to give your money, give your time, right? If you could expound upon that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think, um, like, it's a common saying. I think others at Nushoor have said this, but it's like if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Yeah, I think just to echo what you said, like giving knowledge is exponential because when you give someone an idea and they implement it, others around them will see them doing this thing, and then it will inspire them, or it may inspire others around them to do the same. And yeah, I mean, like we obviously, that's like the best thing you can do because like we're trying to have maximum impact. I don't care if I'm the one who gets the credit. I don't care if this another Nushoor researcher, or I could hear less of another researcher in another country gets credit. Like the most important thing to us is that people in need get help, and there's nothing wrong with like emergency aid and all those all these organizations that deliver life-saving blankets and food and water and all these things to distressed communities. But we really want like to move away from this dependency model where like the recipients don't know how to like heal themselves. They don't know how to provide for themselves. And I think I think we're living in a time right now where a lot of us are kind of just in this mindset that all we have to do is send work at this job, this corporation or this industry, and make our living, and then send a small percentage of it, and that's good enough. And I think everyone has to kind of come to their own conclusions, but at least for myself, like that model of thinking was just not enough. And when I was seeing all the suffering just not never ending, no matter how much money I was sending, it just felt like so many people were asking for money, and so it just seemed like the needs were so great. Like, and I was like, I could never meet the needs of these people myself, like no matter what kind of job I would be working. And it kind of hit me that like either I can I can give to these people, either I can give to these people, continue like give to these people until I run out of my wealth and just go broke, or I can try to like give these people something that will last longer, something that will outlive my own, that will potentially outlive myself, and that will leave like a lasting a long lasting effect on the people that I'm helping, as well as their community, as well as the communities around them. And yeah, that's why I think there's so much power in giving time. And also, I think time is just a really valuable resource. It's oftentimes we think money is the most valuable thing, but actually that's not true. In fact, your time is the most valuable thing. And anyone who tells you otherwise is simply lying to you. Your time is the most valuable thing. And unfortunately, it's the one thing we take for granted the most. We think that we're going to have a lot of time. But the reality is that it can be taken away, um, you know, at any moment, right? We don't know when our time is going to be up. So we have to use every second, every heartbeat, every step we're given, every ounce of effort that we're allowed to exert to help those in need, to give them our attention, give them our love, give them our thoughts, give them our, sincere devotion and dedication. And, um, you know, um, and then let everything fall into place from there. But I do think that this model of just never ending sending money and money more aid, like just boxes and one time consumables, it's like it's just not sustainable. And it ultimately creates a disconnect between us as humans. We should be connecting with each other. We should be learning from one another, teaching one another, transferring knowledge and wisdom to one another. But the way the system works now is that the recipient of the aid and the person who's essentially providing for them is there's all these layers between them. you have different organizations and bureaucracies and laws and regulations, et cetera. But really, we're trying to break through that at Nushoor. We're trying to say that this model is outdated. This model is, not effective. We need to do something different. We need to, empower people from like the ground up, and we need to give them the ability to provide for themselves. Otherwise, these situations are never, it's never going to end. And, the very systems that are causing them to be in the situations that they're in are like, are going to keep going, and then they're never going to get out of their situation. So we need to be like thinking deeply about our time, how we're using it, where we're sending it, who we're supporting, who we're working for, what their intention is, and then ultimately what is our intention, and how can we use the 24 hours we're given in this every day, how can we use it to the best of our ability, because like I said, it's the most valuable thing we have. And everyone will appreciate, anyone in the world who's really suffering will appreciate someone giving their time sincerely. So yeah, I would say that's those are just some thoughts. Yeah.
Who is the ideal Nushoor candidate, and why should they join Nushoor?
Yeah, I would say, someone who's self-driven, someone who has, a heart for humanity, someone who, you know, um, who feels like, who feels that working a 9 to 5, or going into industry, or working just a corporate job is not enough. Someone who thinks that there has to be something, you know, greater to all this, and that, we, you know, we have like, who sees like a higher purpose in their life. Because I think, that's what Nushoor at least has given me. I feel it gives me a higher purpose. Every time I wake up in the morning, I feel motivated. I feel like it gives me a mission and something to work towards. Whereas I think working at these corporate jobs and industrial jobs, like you just feel like a cog in a machine, and, it just feels heartless. Um, so anyone who has a heart for humanity, I would say that's the biggest thing. Like, we have guys who dropped out of school in 8th grade, and they're some of our like, best, most productive, researchers, because they have such a big heart, and they want to, they see the suffering happening all around the world, and they want to do something about it. And when you have that sincere intention, I think that can be the driver. And whether or not you have quantitative skills or like more qualitative human skills, like, there's something for everyone here. And like, I do believe that humanity deserves, especially those who are like in difficult conditions, they deserve the top quality. Like, they deserve the best. Like, we typically always think about like giving our best effort for companies, or if we're going to get paid, or putting conditions. But like, I do believe that these people are really the ones who deserve the highest quality. They deserve our attention. They deserve our, you know, our sincere efforts, and, uh, you know, um, uh, research and development. And I think, frankly, I think a lot of the rich people, greedy people in this world don't deserve that. And I think people who think this way, I think, would fit great at Nushoor. And, um, you know, um, yeah, like, it's not easy, but in my opinion, that's what we have to do. Yeah.
Where do you see Nushoor in 25 years?
Yeah, 25 years, I think it's just slow development. I think we always take things one step at a time. And, you know, to be honest, like, I don't think that far ahead. Usually I just think one day at a time. What's the immediate need right now? In 25 years from now, honestly, I would hope that Nushoor, doesn't exist. I would hope that, like, communities all around the world are like able to provide for themselves, don't need to rely on handouts, don't need to rely on, or not, or not being oppressed, and don't need to rely on external organizations for their sustenance. I would hope 25 years from now that there's no more refugee camps, or that if there are refugee camps, that they're self-sufficient, that they have circular economies built into their development, that they don't depend on any outside intervention. That's really the future we're trying to head towards, is like, we're tired of seeing these refugees, that are like, have no way to protect themselves, no way to defend themselves, no way to, to make a living, no future, right? It's really distressing, like, to be frank. And, it's not just us, there's a lot of other organizations that are doing this work, but really it's just, the idea is just grassroots development, grassroots empowerment. And, we want to get to a future where organizations like ours don't exist, that we have the ability to be self-sufficient. We can teach that ability to others. We have communities like that are role models for communities abroad. And, that there's, that we have, like circular economies built into the way we live. And, that we, can be like an example or a role model for other communities as well. So I guess that's where I would hope that Nushoor is in 25 years, is that we're not only like helping communities, right, transferring knowledge, but also living out the knowledge that we're transferring, and like being role models. Yeah.
What is your message to the world?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I guess just like, yeah, I mean, it's, I would say my last, like, final thing, yeah, is just, we have to, I think, just change the way we think. And I say this for myself first and foremost, like, and in terms of how we see every day that we're given, I think, just be grateful, right? Like, I think at the end of the day, like, gratitude is the best, like the best attitude. I know it's cliche, but like, when you're truly grateful, and you can like truly feel grateful, for everything that we've been given, like our food, water, shelter, electricity, safety, security, all these blessings. Like, it really, I don't know, man. Like, it's the best way to, it's the best driver. And when we're not grateful, I think it leads us to despair. It leads us to hopelessness. It leads us to depression. It leads us to, you know, um, ignorance, and, even greed, right? When a person is not grateful, they just want more and more. They're never satisfied. And I think we just all need to cultivate. Again, I say this for myself first and foremost. Like, we all need to cultivate a sense of gratitude, and being grateful even in difficult conditions. Being grateful, no matter what the state is, and learning to cultivate that. And, I think when we do that, this kind of work that we're doing, and the people we're trying to help, everything will just be facilitated, and it won't even be like difficult or require any effort. But yeah, it all starts with gratitude, and being, remembering where our blessings come from, and using them, to help those in need, using them to always center the needs of the oppressed and the most vulnerable people in this world, and not giving up, and not letting up, because there's always going to be a lot of people that tell you, oh, why don't you, this organization is doing this already, or that organization is doing this already, blah, blah, blah. Like, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like, if a person is grateful, then it's just the best, it's the ultimate remedy. So, yeah.
No, thank you so much, Mr. Malek Ibrahim. This is a very fantastic interview. I hope that those watching, those listening will be able to benefit, and also spread this knowledge, to others, and to those who, who have some time, as you said. Come here and send some of your time. And you don't have to come to, our HQ in Buffalo, New York. You can start Nushoor right in your own city, right in your own backyard. Nushoor, as Mr. Malek said, right, it's a mindset, it's a blueprint that anyone can adopt. So thank you so much for your time, Brother Malek. And to our viewers, please stay tuned for our next interview. Thank you so much, and have a good night.